Well, hello. As you see by some of the videos I'm downloading, he walked Americas. I've had so many people tell me, oh, he didn't walk the Americas. Why would Jesus come over here to the people over here and talk to them? Why wouldn't he? I mean, come on. Be realistic. He was born of a baby in a manger. His mother was a virgin. That even Islam will tell you that's a fact. Mary was a virgin. He was born of a virgin. They accept everything about Jesus, all but the death and resurrection of him, because they just say he's a prophet. So the people that really believe that he couldn't have come over here and spoke to the Native Americans, you're very naive. The things down in South America, the Mayans and the Aztecs, the things they built, I can't exactly remember the dates on them, but a lot of these things was built when European people were still struggling in the mud and gunk of their civilization. Some of these cities are older than some of the cities in Europe. Now, in history, they tell us, which I have come to find out a lot of history was not right. They said that the Native Americans crossed the land barrier from Russia. I don't believe that. I do not, absolutely do not believe that in any shape nor form. If you ask some of our Native Americans, the older people, I'm talking about older when I was a child. I'm 70 now, but I would sit at the feet of the elders a lot, because see, I'm part Cherokee and part Jewish. But I would sit at the feet of some of the elders and listen to their ancient stories that was passed down through time, talking about things that occurred and happened in times past. And not one time was I given any inkling that they come across those straits up there between Russia and Alaska and come down. And what always puzzled my mind when white people would say they come across and they traveled down to South America and built all these things. Well, why would they travel all the way to South America to build the pyramids of the Mayans and the Aztecs down there, when they could have stepped along anywhere along the road? Because we've got beautiful places here. Beautiful places here. Let me see. Let me get my Bible, and I will try to explain to you how I believe the Native Americans come to be. Some of you are really going to not agree with me. In fact, some of you will probably criticize me. Ah, there it is. I had it reading it. Okay. Glasses. What? Get up here, Bear. Come on. Come on. Come on, Bear. Get up here. Quit your crying. My dog's named Bear. That's what he looked like when he was born. He's red now, but he used to be black when he would come out from his mother, and I had to save him. I had to save him. I had to finish helping birth him and open his little mouth and give him CPR, clean all of the stuff out of his nose and his lungs for him to breathe. Come here, Bear. Come on, baby. He was black and curly. That's Major. That's not Bear. Anyway, we're going to go over here to Genesis. I put out a video what I made. You know, I talked about how I believe Adam. I totally believe this. Nobody can convince me otherwise. Unless you can have solid 100% proof, archaeological proof that Adam was created on the 6th day and not the 3rd, then I might believe it. But I don't think you'll find it. Because it was pretty plain here in chapter 2. Chapter 1, remember, was a quick outline of everything going on. But in chapter 2, it was very plain that it says, chapter 2:4, these are the generations of the heaven and of the earth, whom they were created, or when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And every plant of the field before it was on earth, before the 3rd day, and every herb of the field before it grew, the Lord had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. Adam had not been created yet. We're on the 3rd day. There was no plants, no herbs, no kind of green, no growth. And God had not caused it to rain because, why? There was not a man to till the ground. Well, you know how vegetation is anyway. Look at the jungles where the humidity is high and the monsoons come. They grow wild out there. The jungles will get so thick that you can't hardly pass through them. I've never been in a jungle. I'm just saying what I've heard people say. I've had family that's been over there in Africa and into the jungles, and they say that the foliage is so thick you have to chop your way through sometimes. Because it's the humidity and the monsoons that come and rain. The increase of rain and water will cause it to be like, you know, you can take, what is it called when you take a bowl and you put soil in there and you plant something, you put a mist in there, you put a glass dome over it, and that those plants will start growing and sustain their cells from the moisture of that mist that you sprayed in there, and the ground with the food that you pre-put in there will start growing and cause a habitation right in there. If you don't check on it and maybe clip some of the growth back and put the dome back, it will just grow all over there, all over it. I tried it once, okay? Try it. But anyway, but there went up a mist from the earth, watered the whole face of the ground. So this mist would come up. That's why you missed your habitation before you put the glass dome on there, cover the elements. You have to mist it, so there'll be a mist in there. And the Lord formed man of the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man become a living soul. So now he's telling you ahead of time. I mean, it's very plain here on the third day. God made the firmament, divided the waters from under the firmament, the ground, and the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament, and the evening and the morning was the second day. That was the second day. He brought the ground up. And God said, let the water under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear as it was. And God called the dry land earth, as we call it today, and the gathering together of the water called the sea, and God saw it was good, because we can see. I've been to the Atlantic Ocean, I've been to the Pacific Ocean, I've been to the Gulf of Mexico. And God said, let the earth bring forth, what? Grass? Herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so, and the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself also after his kind, and God saw it was good. And the evening and the morning was the third day. Okay? So over here in chapter 2, he's saying, I haven't done any of this yet. I haven't made any grass. I've made the earth, I made the heavens, and I made the ground to come up, but I have not yet planted any of the fields. He did not cause any grass or any herbs to grow, for the Lord had not caused it to rain upon the earth. There was not a man to till it. There had to be a gardener. A gardener. If you know anything about growing whatever you grow out in your garden, it takes you to garden and till the land, keep the weeds from overtaking, taking some plants out that shouldn't be there so they have room for the good plants to grow. I mean, if you know anything about gardening, you know why God did not do this before he created Adam. Because he had to have a gardener. He did. That was his plan, okay? I know some of you say, oh, well, he didn't have to have a gardener. He could have took it. Well, okay. But he had a plan from the beginning. And that plan was that Adam would be created to be a gardener of the ground, of the seed of the earth. Okay? Let's go on. And the Lord formed, because there was this mist coming up, no vegetation yet, and the Lord formed man of the dust of the ground, and it breathed into his nostril the breath of life, and the man became a living soul. So we see him there in God's hand. Wasn't that awesome? Can you imagine how Adam, he was formed, he was in God's hand, God breathed the breath of life in him, and he was standing there in God's hand, probably looking around going, wow, where am I and who are you? I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's what he really thought, but I'm just saying, you know, when you first is born, when you come forth from your mother's womb, pop out into this earth, more than likely the very first person you seen was some doctor wearing a mask in white and like, oh my God, I've come out of out of the darkness into the light, and oh wow, what am I seeing? Giants. I don't know if that's what I thought or not, but I mean, that's what you see when you're born. I had my son natural birth, and the first thing he saw when he come out of me was this doctor grabbing him and pulling him forth and cutting his umbilical cord. What a shocking experience for any baby when they're born. I mean, they're not gently taken care of. You're coming out of your mother. If your water has burst too soon like mine, my son comes screaming because the friction of his body against my body coming out caused friction and heat, and it hurt. That's how the doctor explained to me, because my water had broken too soon. Really, the water inside you needs to be broken at the time of the birth because it lubricates the baby, lubricates you to keep the friction down, and the birth is easier. Little education for birth deal. I've worked in hospitals too, so I help deliver babies also. So here we have Adam standing in God's hand with a earth down there, with dirt down there, the earth part, and the mountains and all, and the ocean, but no greenery, no, nothing. So, does the Lord put him down on earth the minute that he creates him? No. He forms him, he breathes into his nostrils the breath of life, and man becomes a living soul. So the first spirit from God, that came from God, went into Adam when he blowed into his nostrils. And the Lord planted a garden eastward in Eden. There he put the man whom he formed. So God precedes the next event after creating man, Adam. He planted a garden east in Eden so that he could put the man. And out of the ground, he goes on to explain, and out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, good for food, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the bad tree of knowledge. And rivers went out of Eden to water the ground, and from thence it was parted and become into 4 heads. If you look closely, you find that somewhere up in Turkey, the beginning of the Tigris, the Euphrates, and these rivers. The name of the first is Pison. That is it, which compasses the whole land of Hebron, where there is gold. So it goes down into this land of Hebron, and it has gold in it. And the gold of the land is good. There is Bdellium and Onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compresses the whole land of Ethiopia. Well, you know, Ethiopia is down there by Egypt. And it compressed the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it, which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is the Euphrates that comes down. We all know the Euphrates and Tigris, where they run down. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and keep it. He was a caretaker. He was a gardener. He was to dress that garden and keep it. And the Lord commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou must freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. Why wouldn't he want to have the knowledge of this tree? Because it had both good and evil. I'm sorry to say, man is prone to lean to the evil more than the good. And God knew this. So he told Adam, don't eat of that tree. It's a tree of knowledge, and it has good and evil in it. Don't eat it. Don't eat it. You don't need to know all that stuff. For in that day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Well, evidently Adam and Eve didn't die the very minute they ate of it, but their death began then. Because you see, Adam was immortal. He was a spirit from God, given a body made of clay, dirt, and God breathed that spirit into his body, so therefore he was a spirit person of God, a son of God. So he told him, don't eat of that. There's things that you just don't need to know. Man does not need to know. There is stuff that man really still don't need to know. And the Lord said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmate for him. And out of the ground the Lord formed every beast of the field. So let's go back over here to 1. Let's see. We're in the world. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundant the moving creatures that have life, the fowls of that many flew above the earth in the open firmament of the heaven. And God created whales, even created the mammoths, which the waters brought forth abundantly. After that their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the sea, and let the fowl multiply. So this is when God had begun to create the living things outside the Garden of Eden. And the evening and the morning was the 5th day. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creatures after his kind. Okay, this is where God is saying in 19 of 2. And out of the ground, just like he took Adam out of the ground and molded him. The Lord says, out of the ground the Lord formed every beast of the field. So over here in 24 of 1, and God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures after his kind, cattle and creeping things, and the beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. So we can see, even in chapter 1, chapter 2, God formed every beast of the field, every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see. See, Adam couldn't have been brought forth on the 6th day because, he had to be there to name all these things. So now we know that the fowls and the fish were on the 5th day. So in the beginning of the 6th day, he begins to create all this stuff. And we know Adam couldn't have been created at the last because he had to be there at the beginning of the 6th day. Because God created them, God brought them to Adam to see what he would call them, and whatever Adam called every living creature, that was their name. Cattle got to be called cattle because of Adam. Horses because of Adam. Elephants were elephants because of Adam. And it says, in the 20th chapter, in 20th verse, chapter 2, and Adam gave names to all the cattle and the fowl of the air and every beast of the field, but Adam, there was not found a helpmate for him. Aha. They were looking for a helpmate for Adam. But Adam couldn't crossbreed with the birds of the air. Impossible. The two DNAs would not match up that God created. Even though they both were from the ground, the dust of the earth, even though they were both from that, but still they could not mate together because the molecules, the very DNA of Adam, of his blood, come from God himself, because God blew into his nostrils and become a living being created after God. So therefore, it was impossible for mankind to become one with animals, with the beasts of the fields, the birds of the air. It was, their DNA structure is not alike. And it was forbidden by God to do this. So let's go on. Okay, so they couldn't find one. They could not find an acceptable DNA that would be comparable to each other. Now, isn't it strange that Adam was called Adam? And we are made up of atoms? I mean, that's just a thought. That we have atoms that create our skin, our eyeballs, our teeth, our bone. Atoms and molecules that create our structure of this body, this shell that holds the person inside. So there was no way that Adam could take a mate from one of them. Their DNA structure didn't match. Their atoms, their molecules did not match. They could not combine and become one and produce an offspring that would be suitable for mankind. And the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of the ribs and closed up the flesh inside thereof, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman, brought her unto the man. So to find that perfect mate for Adam, he had to take a rib, a bone that's got the marrow in it. I mean, okay, I don't know if you all have done that, but if you take a chicken bone and you break it open, inside there is a soft filling. That filling has the whole structure of your DNA in it, or that chicken's DNA in it. So see, when he chose, okay, I cannot bring up from the earth again one that is compatible to Adam, so therefore I'm going to have to take something of Adam, bring it forth, and create his mate out of him, with all his DNA, with all the molecules and all of the atoms that form a body that would be compatible with the body of Adam. So Eve's body had to be compatible with Adam. That's why we as women marry men and have children, because we're compatible. It takes his DNA and my DNA. When I had my two children, it took my husband's DNA and my DNA to come together and form a new string of DNA that is so complex to create another life form, a human being, not a dog, not a cat, not a bird, but a human being like unto me and my husband. It took that comparison of the DNA, the atom structure that makes up the life form. Okay? So, and Adam said, "This is my now, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, she shall be called woman," because we come from man, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his wife, father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. That's when they come to union together on their wedding night, becoming one. And they were made both naked, and the man and his wife were not ashamed. Well, at that time, yes, they were both naked. They were not ashamed because they had not ate of the tree of good and evil. Therefore, they did not understand the good or the evil of them standing there naked. But, and in chapter 2, that's where it ends, with the creation of Eve for Adam. Adam had long been created, a few days back, before the Garden of Eden was even formed. He was created. So, what happened on the 6th day in chapter 1, though? Okay, we see on the first of the morning that he created the animals, the cattle, and the creeping things, and the beasts of the earth, and all of that. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that was creeping upon the earth after their kind. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them be dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Okay, so Adam and Eve was both created. And who are they created in? Well, of course they're created in the image of their father. Their father created them. Breathed the breath of life into Adam, and I think he breathed the breath of life into Eve. And a female entity entered into Eve's body, making her a female that was compatible to Adam, the male. So, let's see. So he looks at them. They're like him. Who's he talking to? Adam and Eve. I really believe this. Because he had created them, and now he turns to them after all of this is done. So he says to them, he says, let's create in our own image. They're like him. In the image of God created he him, male and female created them. Now we know Adam and Eve were not created at the same time. They're not. But these, male and female, was created at the very same time. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so let's go back, and I'm sorry, forgive me. Somebody was here looking for my husband, so we see on the sixth day, he creates this male and female. Pretty well much like he did the animals and the beasts and the things in the air and the sea, and pretty well he just spoke the word and they come forth. The only thing different how he created them and Adam, he literally took dirt in his hand and molded Adam and made him like unto his own image. I mean, okay, people, I paint pictures. I get a vision in my mind when I'm painting, and I kind of draw it and sketch it out, and then I begin to paint. But I have an image in my mind. What would be the best image in God's mind when he picked up the dirt and he began to... Now, see, I really believe he kind of like spit in it. I mean, it takes water to make the dirt begin to hold together. So, I believe when he took Adam, he picked up the dirt in his hand, he spit in it, and he began to form this thing that had arms, legs, and a head, eyes, and a nose, and he particularly molded him to look like himself. Because he was what he saw in his mind to create in Adam. Okay? But he looks over there at Adam and of Eve, and he's thinking, well, this is the best tin plate I can imagine to have to create any more beings like, if you want to make replicas of something, you get a pattern and you make a plate out of it, and it begins to become the pattern for the other things that you're going to make. So as he called forth male and female, because he had already made a male and female that was like him, and he was quite pleased with what he made. So he made more, which was on the outside, on earth, outside the Garden of Eden. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. He gave them a decreed what to do, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish, and over the fowls of the air, and over everything, over every living thing moving upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed to you, it shall be for meat. At this time he did not give permission for these men and women to kill animals. They were to eat the fruit of the tree and the herbs. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb to meat for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he made. Behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning was the sixth day. This I truly believe when the process of humanity began on earth. Adam and Eve was immortal. They would have never died. Never, ever, ever, ever died if they had not disobeyed God and ate of that tree of good and evil. At this point of time, they were mortal. They were like God. They were like the angels. They would never die. But the people out there, on the other side of Garden of Eden, living in the land, well, they begin to multiply, and they begin to dominate the earth. Many things in this story have not really been told in one lump sum. Now, there are things that scattered through the Bible that if you really study, prelude back to Genesis, when they were first created and first become dominant on earth. Adam and Eve was not to be dominant on earth. They were to be caretakers of the earth, caretakers of mankind. And God had also assigned angels that the book of Enoch will tell you, and then in Daniel, in other places that tell you they were watchers. They were to watch humanity as it grew. This new creation of mankind and womankind began to develop, began to interbreed and have children. They were to watch them and motivate them in how to help take care of this earth and multiply. Not to destroy the earth, but to take care of this earth. So we find out that later on that that as things begin to happen outside of the Garden of Eden and inside the Garden of Eden, two different worlds, two different dimensions, living side by side. One encapsulated by a dome that Adam and Eve lived in. Outside that was the earth with all the people. I believe that's exactly when all the dinosaurs, all of the other things, huge beasts that roamed, and the bones that we have now in museums, they walked with man because they did not kill each other and they did not kill man. Now, I know archaeologists like to try to say that man hunted them down and killed them and would eat them and stuff. I think that they were caretakers over these large beasts. They were there for a purpose to achieve things that man could not achieve. They were strong. They were able to move things that man could not move on himself, because man and woman were weaker. But these animals were strong, and they were gentle, and people could come up and be with them, and they would not want to hurt them. And see, at that time, there was a time it was total vegetation. I'm sorry, people didn't eat meat. They were vegetarians, and so was the animals. God made them that way so they wouldn't kill each other, and that they would live in harmony together and do the things that they needed to do to make this world a habitable place for human beings that he had desired to have there on earth. But I really believe that Atlantis, for some reason, the Watchers built Atlantis out there in the Atlantic Ocean. It was a huge place out there. And they lived there. And they would go in, and if you read Plato's manuscript about Atlantis, at first they were teachers. They helped humanity. They helped mankind. They would teach mankind good things, not evil things, but good things on how to grow things, how to cultivate things, for food, how to build their houses that would protect them from the elements of this earth. I really truly believe that was the main purpose of the Watchers. But something happened in the story of Plato. Go find it and read the story of Plato about Atlantis, where all of a sudden something occurred in Atlantis that turned them from good to evil. Wow, what could that be? What could that be? Could it be that Satan, Lucifer, the light bearer, come up from the obelisk? You see, I didn't say this at first at Genesis. I really believe that when the fall come, that God was so angry in the first earth age, or second, or I don't know how many earth ages there was, but he was so angry, he tossed Satan out, and he fell on earth at that time before Adam and Eve. I'm talking about a different earth age now. He was so angry, he flung him out there, because even Jesus said, I seen him fall like lightning. I believe that he went, and when he tossed him there, he took his finger and he flipped the earth down into the obelisk. Because some of these things, if you go into the Jewish text and look them up, what they're meaning, it was like he tossed him down into this spring that feeds the obelisk, a dark spring of water at the bottom of the abyss, bubbling up. And it caught the earth as it was flipped down there, and everyone or everything that happened to roam the earth in that earth age was totally destroyed. The earth was clean. That's the reason why in Genesis you will say that in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. He did. Complete story. He created them. And the earth was without form and void. The second verse was, all of a sudden, he created earth, and he created the heavens. But then in verse 2, in chapter 1, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the water. Now, why was this earth that God created all of a sudden was void, without form? No living thing, nothing. I mean, it was just down there in the bottom of the obelisk, churning around in that spring water that was bubbling, churning and cleaning it, getting it clean. So, what happened that changed God's mind in this? A lot of people may not agree with me on this, but he said, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. There was light. Wow. Wow. That just, in all the darkness around the earth that he had cast down there, it was dark. It was dark, and there was no light. No light. None. Zero. Zip. Not even the inkling of light coming through. So what happened? What made him decide to begin to change this whole deal? Okay, in 2 Corinthians it says, Paul says, 4 and 6, "For God, who commanded the light to shine out of the darkness, hath shined in our heart to give the light of knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ." Oh, my word. Okay, let's go over here to John. Okay, let's find out who this light was. "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the same was in the beginning, and all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." Didn't understand. When at one time was Jesus, the light of the world, come into the darkness? Hello? Yeah? No, he's over at Tigers. Huh? Oh, he had to go over there and weld something for him. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Yes, I'm positive. Well, come on by. Hush up and come on by. Huh? I might shoot your tires. Just being ornery. No, I wouldn't do that. Okay, see you directly. All right, bye-bye. You see, Jesus Christ was back there in those days too. And so when God sent the light, what light would he have sent? He would have sent his son to divide the light from the darkness. That's, people don't understand the riddle of a lot of these stories that were written by those of old that walked with Jesus. And see, Paul, a lot of people say, well, Paul didn't walk with him. Oh, let me see. For 3 years after he got saved and got his eyesight back, he went down to Saudi Arabia, climbed up on the mountain of Sinai, and spent 3 years. And he was ascended into the third heaven. So I am sure that he was told a lot of things that you and I don't know nothing about. It said it wasn't right. He couldn't speak of all of these things that he saw. Okay? So, another point. Let's go over here. Okay. All right. Let me find it. No, this is not the right book. Maybe if I get over to the right book, I will find what I am trying to find to read you. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, it's Colossians, the first chapter, the 15th verse. Who is the image of the invisible God? Well, who would he be? Jesus. And the firstborn of every creation. So, therefore, God had to bring forth Jesus before he did any of this. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether there be thrones or dominions or principalities or power. All things were created by him, for him. So all these things were created way back here in Genesis by Jesus, for Jesus. His Father created this for him. Okay. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. He's like the glue in everything. The glue that holds the earth together. The glue that holds all things together. That is Jesus himself. And he is the head of the body, the church, us, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might be pronounced, Preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him should be all fullness dwell, and having made peace with the blood of his cross by him, to reconcile all things unto him. By him, I say, whether there be things in earth or things in heaven. So, after the fall, after the earth is re-brought up from the abyss where God had tossed it, where his son, I believe his son probably said, Dad, let's start all over. Let's do this again. There are spirits in here that needs bodies, and we need to do something for them. And beginning with Adam and Eve and the rest that he created out there. It is hard for man to perceive that God would create a human being. It really is. They want to think, because of Charles Darwin, that we as human beings come from an ape or a monkey or whatever. Well, let me tell you what, if we had to come from them, they wouldn't be here. I mean, it's just logical to me. If we take a monkey and it goes up the line and gets smarter and brighter and walking on two legs, and all of a sudden it starts putting on clothes and all of this stuff, it would no longer exist in its form that it is, that we see. I mean, we can see they are still here with us. So if we're them, they would no longer be here. Come on, people. Reason it out. When something changes over into something else, that first thing has to die and give way to the thing that it's changing into. Well, I didn't come from a monkey. I come from God. So, in all of this event that was going on, And the cross was even talked about before the creation. God knew that we were going to mess up, and that there had to be a way when the fall come, because God took probably lambs, killed them, and clothed Adam and Eve in them, made the first blood sacrifice for their sin that they did, and Adam got to live 900 and I think 60 some years. I could go back and look it up, but anyway, he almost lived 1,000 years. Doesn't say how long Eve lived or when she died. Because, see, really in a way, the man was more important than even the woman. We carried the body, the egg, that little atom inside us that goes down our fallopian tubes, and the man carries the seed of life within him that goes in and connects with that egg, and the body begins to form for that soul to live in. People don't want to realize that. They think, oh, this is me. No, this isn't me. This is a shell that is a body holding me in it. So I'm going to end with that, because you see, I believe when God on the 6th day spoke the word, male and female come about. All of them come about. He knew there was an America over there. And if you talk to the Indians, they'll tell you they were formed here, out of the ground here. People don't want to believe this, but that's all right. One day the awakening will come and you will find out that where you come from is where your body developed in generations back there. Just like the animals. We, as far as the body form, we are no better than the animals. When we die, our body goes back to the dust of the earth. When an animal dies, the body goes back to the dust of the earth. Because mankind was formed from the dust of the earth. Even Adam. Eve was the only one that was not formed from the dust. She was formed from bone, Adam. But we are the product. We are the product of God and His imagination of what He wanted to create here on earth. Because of Satan, Cain and Eve and Adam, that got a bump in the road. But I talked to a professor once. My daughter come home and she's all upset because her science teacher was teaching evolution. Well, I go up there to talk to the teacher. First, I was really mad. Man, don't you teach my daughter this bull. And he sat there and he said, evolution means change. You're changing from one thing to another. So as I was sitting there listening to him give all this big spiel about how evolution really works and how we evoluted and all that stuff, and I sat there for a while and I was really quiet, and I went, you know what, sir, I almost have to agree with you. We evoluted from the glory of God, from the immortality that He had gave us from the beginning, into less than what God had wanted for us. We had evoluted from being immortals into none. And that's why we die. And he kind of looked at me real funny and he said, no, that's not it. I mean, Darwin teaches about, the monkeys and stuff. And I said, well, okay. I'll try to give you that, but why are there monkeys here on Earth? When evolution starts, it changes. And one group dies while the other one is being evoluted and changed into a greater thing. Well, now, how do you evolute and change into a greater thing when you're a lesser thing? Because the monkeys can't read or write. They don't hold down jobs. They don't do the things that human beings with their intelligence does. So I said, how do things that are lesser evolute and grow into more? I said, it doesn't make sense to me. It has no logic at all. Now, if we, the human beings, had evoluted down the chain and become monkeys, and we no longer existed, well, I could see that. Because the least cannot evolute into more, but more can evolute into less. Well, he sat there for a while, and he looked at me and he said, you just want to mess up all the teaching that I have learned. And I said, no, I'm just telling you that it is impossible for something less intelligent to evolute up to the intelligence of mankind. Mankind was created with that and taught by the fallen angels, the watchers, that come down and taught them many things they should have never known. The book of Enoch will teach you a lot. Of course, I know a lot of you don't like the book of Enoch because it's not the Bible. If it's not King James, then it's not true. Well, then Jesus didn't know what he's talking about when he quoted some of them. Jude didn't know what he was talking about when he quoted about the watchers and the fallen angels. Maybe Daniel didn't even know what he was talking about when he talked about the watchers watching, over there in Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. I'm sorry. I think that the book of Enoch is a good book and good in history. I think that's what he was studying, mostly. To find things out that man would have never found out before, because he wrote it in a book, like a historian, like Josephus wrote. Some people don't like that, but I have it and I read it also. Josephus tells us a lot of things about the last days of Jerusalem when Rome come in there and destroyed it, and the signs that God gave them, letting them know that that destruction was about to happen. We're getting a lot of the signs right now here on earth trying to tell us something big and dramatic is about to happen, and people don't want to listen. Well, I closed this down. I probably made a lot of people mad at me. Frankly, I don't care. You'll get glad in the same pants you get mad in, as my old grandmother used to say. So bless you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ.